Welcome to Method 2 installation. So look at the blur lights. If your lights have these vertical columns, and if you want to get and install the Method 2 installation, you're going to need to go through the firewall, which is what I'm showing you right now on the screen. I'm currently holding, or was holding, or am holding this puncture tool that's going to help us puncture through the firewall, allowing us to route this gray cable that is not included in your kit. We need to route this cable through to the firewall so that we can splice into a wire on the passenger footwell. So in order to puncture through the firewall, we have to use this tool, which we'll provide a link to in our description, and puncture that little spot that I'm trying to reach. What's going to happen is that that firewall is a grommet, and by puncturing through the rubber grommet, I can now route a wire through there. Rest assured there's no water infiltration in this area. And the most challenging part is actually puncturing that slot. Once you puncture the firewall, you can route any cable that fits through this puncture tool. I'm just happening to use a gray cable. This gray cable is identical to the yellow cable that you have. As you can see, it's punctured now. That's why it's held in place. Once it's punctured, any cable, and I'm using this gray one, needs to be fed through the puncture tool and inside this tool and through the grommet so that you can reach on the other side. Take your time. It shouldn't take long, but at the same time, it may be a little bit challenging at first to route the wire, in this instance, the gray wire, through this tool. I've done this many, many times, and even I have some challenges, as you can see in this video. Once you get it through, as you can see, just slowly feed it through this little opening. Now, I'll remind you later that you have to take out the puncture tool. So keep that in mind when you are wrapping up this video. So once it's punctured and you're feeding the wire through, naturally you keep pushing the wire as much as you can to the other side. Once you think that you've pushed more than enough through the puncture tool, you should be able to go into the passenger side and then look for this wire. So eventually this wire will connect to the yellow wire. Unfortunately, we did not separate the yellow wire so you can do this. So you may have to get your own wire and tape the yellow wire through and drag the yellow wire through. But you do need to get a wire through this firewall and connect to the wire that we intend to connect to. It looks like I finally was able to get it through the puncture tool. So now I'm in the passenger footwell and you can see the wire just dangling because I pushed through a surplus of wire. At this point, I need to splice. So that wire that we pushed through, we also included a posi tap. So we're going to use that posi tap as a splicing tool. And there are three connectors when you open this. There's either white, black, and white. So we're going to disconnect the black and try to cut through all those black taping. And what I'm showing you here is really pointing out to you that we need to get the orange and green wire and splice into that orange and green wire using the posi tap that was provided. So you may need to grab a little scissor to cut through all those electrical tapes. In this instance, we've already cut through. So I am going to grab my crimper tool to remove some of the excess cabling so I can splice. Using the posi tap, I'm going to go ahead and first and foremost, using the gray side, which is the puncture side, posi tapped into the orange and green wire that I am navigating to. That's connected to the black harness in between the two white harness. So the gray is going to go, the cap is going to go on the orange and green wire as I screw in the cap. What that is doing is that it's going to puncture that wire and splice it. On the other end, I'm going to insert the raw wire into the red insert and make sure all the way through, and then screw this in, creating a connectivity to my gray wire and the orange and green wire. After it's done, this is what the end result looks like. And what I ended up doing is that this video that we switched to, I was able to route the yellow cable, as you can see, all the way through to get to that orange and green wire. So I routed that yellow cable, which comes with your kit. Now, this is from a previous video. Um, so what's going to happen is, what I'm trying to show you is it doesn't matter if it's a yellow cable or a gray cable. You just need a cable to go through the firewire and splice into the orange and green wire that's located on the black connector. Once that is done, you can do one of two things. If you're using extra spare wires, you're going to have to connect that spare wire to the yellow wire that is provided in your kit. Or if you're using the yellow wire, you can go ahead and simply drag it all the way out. But before we do this, you always have to remove the puncture tool, as I'm doing right now. And the reason why there's no connector on this puncture tool is the puncture tool doesn't allow for it. It's too thin to allow for the puncture tool to go through on the current yellow adapter. In this instance, the gray adapter that I'm using from the prototype was fine, but we upgraded the cable really for durability. So unfortunately, the yellow cable was not able to go through that puncture tool. So there's different ways of puncturing. That was just one that we relied on. Uh, Now, when you're routing the cable back to the front headlight harness, make sure you identify existing uh, zip tie points. Naturally, you want to zip tie these as much as you can where existing zip tie lies. Avoid zip tying into bare metal because there's a good possibility that there is going to be high number of heat involved, and you certainly don't want to impact your zip tie with that element. So I'm basically looking for a nice clean wire route where there are previous and existing zip ties associated, and I'm piggybacking off of those zip ties. Once I have it routed all the way to the front, I start, if you have excess amount of wires, I start to go ahead and organize it, and eventually you'll see it will be zip tied so that these excess wire won't just simply be hanging, but instead will be tightly zip tied in a certain spot directly to its core connector. So this particular connector, which is the gray, which is the equivalent to the yellow that's provided in the kit, would have to connect back to the single yellow wire that is part of your kit. If you look at your harness, and when you look at your harness, it comes naturally connected between two yellow wires. what you're going to end up doing is that you're going to disconnect the two yellow wires that are connected and instead connect the splice wire to this yellow wire for that connection. And that is what I ended up doing here in my demonstration. And even though it's a gray wire showing, it's the same exact methodology. Once that is done, simply go ahead and zip tie everything back up and do not pay attention to this control box. This was a prototype control box. The current production control box is infinitely smaller, but make sure your control box is installed in between the headlight harness and the pony. Do not connect the headlight harness directly to the pony. The control box is a surge protector, allowing the pony to operate and preventing it from overheating. There's a high value of power being delivered. So without the control box, your power can absolutely disturb the emblem. So I'm going to go back in time and show you that pretending that this yellow wire was the one that was spliced and went through the firewall. And with this yellow wire that went through, we're now just retucking it again. So again, we're just showing you what would have happened if we had gone and used the yellow wire. And again, the previous videos are showing the gray wire, so the yellow wire in this instance kind of helps you provide a little bit more clarity because it's included in your kit. And similarly to what we did previously, we are zip tying the yellow wire to existing zip tie points. So here I am. I'm disconnecting the two yellow wire that was previously connected, and I'm disconnecting it. That was part of the module box. And then I'm reconnecting, and there's only one end you can connect to, so you really can't make a mistake, to the other yellow wire that was punctured. Once that is done, you are now completed with method number two. Method number two in this instance is representing only premium and first edition trims with the vertical headline lines on the headlight. It is a little bit different for those who want to do method number two for Select and California Route 1 trim. By using this methodology on method number two, your pony will light up during approach, similar to when your puddle light comes on, and it will continue to turn on if and when your low beams are set to automatic and when it turns on. This added feature is different. So here's a video demonstration of during approach to the pony. You will see that the pony will light up. And this is not unlocking the door, although when you unlock the door, the pony will light up as well because your low beam kicks on. And that is how you perform method two for the premium and first edition. We will try to bring up another video for the California Route 1 and Select edition as well shortly. Thank you.